Hello, everyone. I'm thrilled to host this meeting today with Elwira and Grzegorz, UX designers at Autentika, with whom we'll talk about ethnographic research, a crucial part of the UX design process. Specifically, we'll share some insights on ethnographic research in a newsroom. Elwira, Grzegorz, welcome. It's great to have you here. And to begin with, could you please briefly introduce yourselves and tell our audience about your background and what you do at Autentika?
Hi, my name is Elwira, and I am a UX designer with over 5 years of experience and creating products from scratch. What I enjoy about my job is getting to know new people and finding solution to their problems.
Hi, my name is Greg. As a designer with over 10 years of experience, my goal is to create solutions that meet the needs of both business and users, while also with a pinch of business analysis expertise in the process.
Thank you so much. I would like to start with some basics. Could you tell us what ethnographic research is and how does it differ from other research methods in UX design?
In our case, we usually sit behind journalists, editors, publishers, and watch how they work. In the moments which are interesting for us, we ask them questions.
What differs from the other qualitative methods is mainly the amount of time and effort needed for that kind of research. Ethnography research needs more time, of course, and it depends on the project scale. But as Elwira said, we have to sit and observe the interviewees sometimes the whole day of their work in order to get reliable results. And we have to do this multiple times. The other thing is user engagement in research that will consume those people time. And that kind of effort costs more than the other surveys or diary studies, for instance, right? The huge positive outcome is that we gather a vast amount of insights, of data and other results that no IDIs nor survey nor any other method can deliver us, given the fact, of course, that you do the ethnographic research in a proper way. In our opinion, the ethnographic research helps us understand the user's needs and problem with the software they are using. It's a perfect supplement for the other methods, especially the quantitative ones.
We'll get back to quantitative methods later in the interview. Now I wanted to ask about a different thing. Margaret Mead, the world-famous anthropologist, once said, what people say, what people do, and what people say they do, entirely different things. Is that true when it comes to ethnographic research? Is it a process that can really help teams better understand their users, and why?
I would say this is one of the fundamental principles in the UX design, right? Don't listen to users, observe them. Of course, we shouldn't be so strict with this rule, right? But the essential is to evaluate the user's statements with their actions, because they may not always be aware of their own behavior or may provide biased responses during the interview, okay? Don't get me wrong. I don't mean that the users are lying or have ill intentions, but it's common to forget something that is totally minor for them and for us could be a real deal from our perspective, right? Finally, ethnographic research allows us to gain deeper contextual understanding of the users, right? By observing them directly, we can uncover all the nuances of their behaviors, needs, pain points. And this is something that we might not be able to capture through other research methods, right? So by immersing ourselves in the user's environment, we can see the bigger picture and understand the broader context in which they work.
It can also help with identifying pain points. Maybe might be the pop-up that appears every time the user wants to paste the text. Normally, it wouldn't be a problem, but when you see this dozens of times every day, it's really annoying. And the final argument of conducting ethnographic research is that the better we get to know the real work of journalists, publishers, editors, the more precise conclusion we can take from them.
Could you describe some of the insights you gathered during the ethnographic research in newsrooms? And how do you apply them in your design work?
Yeah, we have a couple of that kind of stories, to be honest, but let's focus on the most iconic ones. One of those is about journalists and SEO efforts. I mean, during our interviews, journalists stated that they're following strict SEO rules, considering the headlines, the title proper naming, and whatnot, given by the SEO team via internal daily bulletin. That was the statement, right? But what we saw during the ethnographic research was that none of those participants really even looked at the documents, right? So the bias was that the most of them really thought that every SEO bulletin contains the same information. So it wasn't worth an effort to open it and read this again, right? From our perspective, incorporating the bulletin's guidelines and informations into simple, streamlined text check process, right, during writing would perform better than the actual solution of sending a bulletin via email and other channels.
I remember one interesting story where we met newly recruited editor, and she was about to finish her job, and she needed to hand over her duties to the next editor. But she only knew his name. There were several people in this newsroom with the same name, and she didn't know which person is the right one. It would be really helpful to include in the software the list of the people, their schedule, their responsibilities to avoid situations like this.
So, what were some of the challenges you faced in this process?
The most common one is gaining access to the research participants, right? Our research involves observing, as you said, and it's not just like on Animal Planet or National Geographic. We have to be with those users in place in newsroom. It can be challenging to gain access to those people, especially if they are busy, what's obvious, and all have concerns about their privacy, right? So this is the major challenge, I would say, during that process. The second one, it's very hard to maintain users' attention and full focus during research, right? It's not easy to be, 100% committed for several hours, and we are well aware of that, right? And that's why we usually mix those two approaches of shadowing research and contextual interview, right, together within one sitting. That gives us the best pace and balance between, getting the situation nervous and more relaxed during the questions, right, phase. And another one is thinking aloud protocol. I mean, at the beginning of each session, of course, we encourage participants to vocalize everything they are thinking or processing or doing even. However, this can be very uncomfortable or even unnatural as a behavior for our participant. They may forget about, this think aloud protocol. To help overcome this, we often ask some contextual additional questions throughout the sessions, right? Such as, what happened? Can you tell me more about that? And so on. This not only her reminders of thinking aloud protocol, but also provides deeper insights in their experiences and thought processes.
It's not a secret that journalists see us during the research. Huge challenge for us is to minimize our influence on the process. We try to be quiet during the observation and only interrupt the attendee at the really important moment.
So, how do people usually react to you? They feel comfortable sharing their experiences and perspectives?
I think yes. We know that this is a stressful situation, not only for us, but especially for the users. But we try to come to the people open-minded and really positive attitude. They see that we are normal people, we smile, we talk to them, and it's tend to affect the people. Every time we make sure that they understand that we are not there to judge them. We are there for understand how they work. I think I need to add for this that ethnography is not a start research. It's not that we walk into the newsroom from the street and start working. Participants know who we are and how we will work.
There is one thing that during our session, we have found that people can react differently It's obvious, right? Depending on the context and the level of comfort of being observed. For example, in a newsroom setting, some participants might feel insecure or stressed even, right, when being observed, which can affect not only their behavior, but also responses, their workflow. So we try to create comfortable environment and ensure them that, hey, we are good guys, right? We are not here to evaluate you or your work, but focus on the software and its flaws. Despite our efforts, of course, some participants may still be unresponsive or reluctant to share their experience and perspectives. And in these situations, we have to adapt our approach, right? By asking open-ended questions and using active listening techniques to encourage them to share more. We try to be as flexible as possible, right? And responsive to their needs, whether that means taking breaks, adjusting the time, or length of the session, or even modifying our approach and methods to better suit their needs and preference.
Now I would like to go back to the question about qualitative and quantitative research. How do you combine qualitative insight gained from the ethnographic research, other data types, such as quantitative analytics, and how do you apply them in decision making?
So let's be honest, our credo would be numbers first, questions later. I mean, in our approach, we have to use first quantitative data and research of quantitative data to identify the general things like behaviors, patterns, more broad insights that we can explore those further through ethnographic research, right? For example, imagine that the quantitative data might help us identify areas of drastic productivity decline within the software, right? And this is exact thing that we can explore deeper during the ethnographic phase. Then by combining the qualitative insights gained from the research with the users with this quantitative data that comes from, an analytical tool, we can gain a more comprehensive understanding of the user behavior, problems, and we can make our decisions through the design phase more grounded in the solid evidence.
So you get the full picture.
Exactly, more completed one, to be honest.
Coming to the end of our interview, I'd like to ask maybe a little bit tricky question, but can you do research in a remote or hybrid work environment?
The short answer is yes, it is possible. In our case, the answer is not possible. And let me explain you why. It is certainly possible to conduct research remotely or in a hybrid work environment, right? Using methods like ethnography, which involves using digital methods to study online communities and social networks and so on, or by remote user testing that are pretty much similar to the traditional user tests, right? Conducted using video conferencing software and other remote tools. However, it is important to stress that these approaches may not fully replicate the experience of traditional ethnographic research, right? What those methods lacks of is a context and environment, right? Ethnography involves deep immersion in this participant's natural context, right? Which can be difficult to achieve remotely. During these remote sessions, we may not be able to fully observe nonverbal cues, or we may miss out something important like social or cultural factors that can influence participants' behavior. So maybe it's not the best solution, right?
And therefore, there are no standard practices nowadays for remote ethnography in UX. We try to be up to date with this method. However, at this point, we believe that they are not replace offline ethnography and the contact with the users.
Maybe it's still to come, but good sign, because this way we need to have some human interactions. Thank you so much for your time and this conversation. And any of our listeners has any additional questions or would like to chat digital transformation in a newsroom, reach out.